Hello, my name is Payman Ramji, and I work at a Ramji law firm where we educate, empower, and advocate for those seriously injured in auto accidents. Every single month, we roll out with a law blog based on different topics. And a lot of times, the blog has to deal with specific questions or topics that have been brought to our attention that clients or potential clients may be confused or interested to hear more about. And so today, what we're really going to talk about is long-term injuries from car accidents in Missouri and what your rights are if you've suffered a long-term injury. The craziness is that car accidents can cause a huge variety of injuries. I mean, we have clients that have minor scrapes and bruises, and we have certainly clients that have more substantial injuries, death or paraplegia. And so it can be a wide variety of injuries that you may experience if you are injured into a car accident. And Missouri, like other states, have very specific rules as far as what and how you can recover for your damages. And when I say damages, I don't just mean pain and suffering. There may be recovery for medical expenses, for lost wages, for pain, but also other costs associated with long-term injuries. There are such things as uh, long-term treatment plans. There are cost of care summaries that you can hire experts for, and understanding your rights, especially when you have long-term injuries in a car accident, can be crucial to making sure that you're fully compensated for your injuries. Missouri, like many other states, is a fault-based system, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit today. But I just want to talk about all different types of long-term injuries that individuals may suffer from. What we oftentimes experience is clients who suffer whiplash and neck injuries. This can first occur whenever your head is just suddenly jerked forward or backwards. It can cause an injury to, soft tissue of your neck. Some people recover pretty quickly, but others have experiences of chronic or ongoing pain. There are also situations where people have spinal cord injuries, and these, of course, can be some of the most severe injuries that people have in car accidents. You can have partial or even complete paralysis, which, of course, is common sense, would absolutely impact your life and your family's life for a long time. People do suffer from traumatic brain injuries, which a lot of the traumatic brain injuries people suffer from is from brain injuries. The traumatic nature of car accidents can put a lot of toll on everything going on in your head. They can cause cognitive impairment, headaches, dizziness, mood changes. I mean, truthfully, it can really affect somebody's long-term ability to function just in day-to-day life. You also have injuries such as broken bones, joint injuries, and while they can heal over time, it doesn't mean that you're not going to deal with chronic pain or long-term injuries as a result of the broken bone in the first place. But you can also have internal injuries. There's all sorts of body parts that we have, and the trauma that your body goes through when it's jerked around violently in a car wreck can cause all sorts of problems in the internal body parts as well. And while I've certainly just talked about all of the physical injuries, it would be unfair to not also talk about the psychological and emotional injuries that many people suffer when they go through a car accident. And in all honesty, they can be just as disabilitating as the physical injuries. Conditions like PTSD, depression, they can exist long after the car accident took place, and they can interfere with your quality of life and your ability to do all the things that you may need to do in your life. So, like I said, it's really important to understand your rights whenever you're involved in a car accident and you've suffered long-term injuries. You have a right to seek compensation for medical expenses, your wages, pain and suffering, and other damages. So let's just go through an overview of the recovery that you may be able to have if you're involved in a car wreck. Like I said, you can recover medical expenses when the other driver's at fault. You're entitled for all your medical costs associated with your injury. This includes the medical care as well as ongoing treatment for the long-term injuries. So if you need physical therapy for months or even years, the cost of the treatment should be covered by that person. Some people have asked us, well, is there a limit as far as how long of responsibility that person will have for your injuries? And the answer is no. If we can prove that the injuries are the actual and foreseeable damages as a result of the accident, then as long as you're suffering injuries, you should be compensated for the injuries. You also have a right to recover something, though, called lost wages. If you're injured in a manner, especially with long-term injuries, where you're no longer able to earn the wage that you previously could, then the person who caused your injuries will be responsible for reimbursing you or compensating you for those lost wages. This can be critical when you consider the case of a lot of traditional marriages where one person's the breadwinner and the other person does some more of the traditional responsibilities. And that breadwinner loses their ability to work, especially if the family was entirely leaning on that income. It can be devastating to a family to lose the ability to meet your own needs, pay your mortgage, pay your expenses when people are injured in car accident cases. You also have a right to recover for the pain and suffering. So the truth is, while you may have medical bills and while you may have lost income, some of the most difficult things to deal with is the pain and suffering that our clients will experience. The emotional distress caused by the accident is also able to be compensated, as well as conditions like back pain, headaches, or even just mobility limitations that you may have. Now, we've talked about a lot of the personal injury, but the truth is this, you also can recover for property damage. If you have had your car injured, your property damaged, then you can get the property paid for, or you can get compensation for the damaged property. And they can be included in your claim for your personal injury case as well. Now, earlier we talked about how Missouri has a fault-based system. And what's interesting about Missouri is that it's what's called a pure comparative fault system, meaning that you can actually bear some responsibility in the accident and still recover for your injuries. And the truth is this, most accidents aren't as a result of one cause. Most accidents as a result of many contributing causes. So just because you may be 20% at fault in the accident doesn't mean that the 80% fault that the other driver had is not going to be something they have to compensate you for. Now, something that's critical to be aware of when talking about your rights in a case with long-term injuries is that there are statute of limitations. And for most cases, general cases, when somebody causes you to get injured by way of some negligent act, you have 5 years from the date of that accident. I say this cautiously because I also don't want to be too broad. There are causes of action that require you to give notice within even 90 days. I think what the most important takeaway from this is don't delay. The statute of limitations will bar you from bringing your action. And I think the worst thing that could happen is that you begin to recover, you wait some time, and you learn that you waited too long and can no longer recover from the harm that you've been suffering. Now, we do have to prove injuries. And when I said earlier that there has to be a foreseeable injury in the actual negligent act causing your injuries, we have to prove those things to the court. We, as the person bringing the cause of action or asking for compensation, bear that burden. And the way that we bear that burden is that we demonstrate it to adjusters and to defense counsel and to the jury by oftentimes showing medical records, such as notes from doctors or specialists or other healthcare providers that you were treated for or treated with after the accident. And hopefully those records will outline the nature of your injuries and the treatment you received, as well as any long-term effects that you've experienced. Now, there are some cases, though, that do require expert testimony. And in those cases, we do have to hire witnesses, such as doctors or even vocational rehabilitation specialists, who can testify about the long-term effects of your injuries. These professionals can really help impact the value of your case and make a clear picture to the adjuster, the court, or defense counsel as to how these injuries have impacted you. You'll also want to have documentation for lost wages. If you have a long-term injury and we're arguing that as a result of that injury, you've lost the ability to earn an income, you really will want to have the documentary evidence to show that that has in fact taken place. But sometimes the most important thing when we talk about proving long-term injuries is our client's own testimony, their own statements. They've lived it, they've experienced it, and sometimes hearing from the person themselves can be really, really incredible in understanding the journey and the long-term injuries that our clients may have had to experience. Now, when talking about how to handle these cases, the truth is this, insurance companies are oftentimes who we deal with, and it can be extremely frustrating to work with insurance adjusters when we're trying to resolve a claim for all that our clients should be able to recover. Insurance adjusters will try to oftentimes resolve a claim for far less than what we believe it's worth by using techniques like low offers quickly after the accident. It'd be surprising to learn that sometimes 45 minutes after an accident, adjusters are on the phone talking to people, trying to get them to accept some compensation for a low amount in order to sign a release. So if you're going to work with an adjuster, if you're going to talk with them, then I really suggest you document everything. Keep a really clear, detailed record of all the medical treatment, communication, and any expenses you incur as a result of your injuries. Also, I will tell you, you should consult with a legal professional. It can be really daunting as well as just really difficult to go through the healing process and everything you have to conquer when going through a case of long-term injuries, and then also deal with the insurance company. And I think one of the best value propositions we bring to our client is to take the responsibility off their shoulder so that they can do what they need to do, which is to care for their family and get better. Long-term injuries can be really devastating, and it's important that you understand your rights under Missouri law so that you can obtain the full compensation for medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, and any other cost. Carefully document your injuries, work with healthcare providers, and make sure to understand the legal process so that you can be fully compensated for your injuries. And while I've covered a lot, and this is a really complicated and interesting topic, I will tell you one of the best things you can do is just work with an experienced attorney to help you navigate this world so you can take care of yourself in these tough times.